every ancient tradition gives you all this stuff about the pineal gland, and if you've seen my other lectures, you know that the pineal gland has been reverse engineered, and it creates a working Stargate. If you do the same thing, you have a barrel of water instead of it's in the shape of the pineal gland. You create an electromagnetic shield around it, and it opens up a portal. And I've spoken to, 6 different insiders who all told me about this technology. It really works. This is not some fabrication. So now, if you have a Stargate inside your mind, what the insiders told me recently, and it's kind of funny because I'd never really thought about this before, this one particular insider is saying, well, you know, when someone reaches this light body, all that means is that the light that normally is confined inside the pineal gland has now gotten wide enough that it engulfs the size of the body. And once that's done, then you now have the ability to voluntarily go wherever you want to go by just consciously thinking yourself there. You can bilocate, you can teleport yourself. You become like those portals on the earth that I was showing you that all the ancient sites were built on. So why would they build the pyramid? Well, the pyramid harnesses this energy based on its shape. It's a funnel. The pyramid shape, as the energy flows into it, it flows like a current. And if obviously you have a round object, the current flows in and out the same way on both sides. But if you have a shape that's not round, like a cylinder or a cone or a pyramid, then now, if I can use this cup as an example, like the pineal gland, right? The energy flows in more down here than it does up here, and it creates a directional current of flow. Well, that current of flow, very important point is that as you go over the speed of light in terms of vibrational speed, you now pop over into a parallel reality. In the traditional sciences, according to Einstein, when you reach light speed, you gain mass, you become infinitely massive. The new science from the Russians, from Dr. Vladimir Ginzburg, is that as you approach light speed, you lose mass. You just flip that Einstein equation over, which is not equals mc squared, it's a different one. And it doesn't violate any laws of physics, but it gives you all these new things. God becomes a friend with benefits. Whew! Starting to loosen it up a little bit here now that we've gotten through the science part of the talk. You say yes to that? All right. Bergie likes it, so that's good. He likes it. Hey, Bergie. All right. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you a series of logical steps that are how I actually achieved this on my own. And I'm not talking about theoretical. I'm not talking about something that I read a book that said, oh, if you do this, then maybe it'll work. And now I'm teaching you, saying, hey, I'm working on this, and hopefully it'll work for me too. No, no, no. This is not stuff you're going to find anywhere else. This is stuff that I developed on my own. I have a much more detailed presentation of this. This is like the Cliff Note version. And that presentation is available as a video download on my website. It's called Access Your Higher Self. And there's going to be some similarities in that video to what you see here, a lot of similarities, except that this is a much more rapid transition through the various slides. But you're still going to understand how to do this. And again, I've been doing psychic readings, getting conscious downloads where I actually hear the words in my mind, and I document them, and I analyze them afterwards, and they've predicted the future. In fact, it was doing it so much that I had a stack of tapes back when we used to use cassettes. Now you want to use an MP3 player, same process, but I had cassettes on my desk, sometimes 5 high, 90-minute tapes. And I'd finally get to transcribe one of them, and then as I'm typing the words of my dream and then the reading that would occur, it's referring to something that was happening right before I sat down. I had this one guy who gave me my first conference. It was in Knoxville, Tennessee. His name's Marshall Dudley. Marshall got a reading from me, and back in those days, it wasn't over the phone. I didn't want anybody tapping my phone to hear what I was doing. So I'd mail people a cassette. Well, he was really on my case. Where's the tape? Where's the tape? Where's the tape? Where's the tape? He finally wakes up one morning with this dream where he's having trouble setting up a tripod. And he wishes in retrospect that he told his wife about the dream that he had. But he was so excited, he had this dream about trying to set up a tripod, and one of the legs wouldn't stand up straight. And then he runs out to the mailbox, grabs the tape. Oh my God, there it is. The tape came. Thank God. Yeah. Comes into the house, pops it in the stereo. The tripod represents. That's the first thing the reading said. Okay? No ambiguity here. Now, I had another woman who, in this case, I had given her another one of these readings where the tape was sent in the mail and you didn't hear anything over the phone. I have a dream before I go into the reading. The dream said, in the dream I was trapped inside this giant cathedral and I couldn't get out. And she actually had grown up in organized religion and was still a member of the church, but was increasingly being shamed and negated by what they were telling her because they were telling her this was all evil. But she was curious. So, of course, in my dream, I'm trapped inside this church. Very obvious symbol. It was a giant cathedral. This woman was having actual ET visitations coming into her room, and I do not believe she was lying. For whatever reason, the area that she was living in might have been a good place for them to come and go. She calls me up the next day after I did the reading that night and said, well, I have something really amazing to tell you, but why don't you tell me first what happened to you? And I say, well, you know, I had your dream, and then the dream was I was trapped inside this giant cathedral and I couldn't get out. The woman starts freaking out. Oh my God, oh my God, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, what is going on? She's like, they came last night. Who's they? There were lights outside the window, and a robed being manifested in front of my bed. My husband is sitting there sleeping. He doesn't know anything about what's going on. Here's this being, and he starts having this telepathic information exchange with her, almost like that was the reading, right? And then it was a robed being, Caucasian. You know, it did have Christic parallels for whatever reason. That's probably what she needed to see. So he had the beard and he had the long hair and all this stuff. But he was older, and this older Jesus has showed up a lot. He says to her, there's one thing that I need to make sure that you write down before I leave. And I want you to remember this, because I know when you come out of this state that you're in right now with me, you're not going to be able to remember hardly anything, but you've got to remember this. Please write this down. And she telepathically says, what is that? And he said, remember the giant cathedral. So then when she hears me say that in my dream I was trapped inside a giant cathedral, she bursts into histrionics, starts going crazy, freaking out, crying. Well, thank you. And this is what we get. This is the kind of stuff that starts to happen. Remember, the primitive mountain is where the gods touch down. The pineal gland is your gateway to these higher realms. I was telling you before about the idea that when you really understand how this science works, you have to dispense with the notion that your mind is private. If you're trying to solve that hidden figure puzzle that I showed you from Rupert Sheldrake, and other people already did it, you're going to do it faster. You're not going to have as much trouble, because when you try to think, you're accessing a collective shared information field, which is then biased by your mind to appear as if it was a private thought. So all I'm trying to do is figure out a way to teach you how to shut off the biasing mechanism so that you can tell the difference between a thought that you create and a thought that is created on your behalf. Because here's the trick. It's not like you pound 5 shots and all of a sudden you're drunk with spiritual ecstasy. It doesn't work that way. It's going to be your conscious mind. Nothing appears to have changed. It's going to be in your mind. People are getting psychic information all the time. They just don't realize it. It's when you learn how to differentiate between a thought that bubbles up and a thought that arises by deliberate concentration that you'll get to the key of how this technique works. So the mind does appear to be an information field that we tap into non-locally, and hypnosis gives us a remarkable insight into that. We know that you can hypnotize a person, and when they're brought under that state, they are basically asleep, but they can hear you and they interact. You're now talking to the person that they are when they're dreaming. You're talking to the astral. It's a whole different part of yourself that is walled off from your conscious mind by amnesia. Most people don't remember their dreams. If you want to get to be psychic and you want to get to do what I do, because I can hear this stuff whenever I want to. I go to varying levels. I don't want to go too deep in my regular waking mind because it's very difficult to function. But believe me, there's varying levels to which I dip in all the time. If you remember your dreams, then you're creating a bridge between your astral and your physical self, which is utterly essential because the astral is the part of you that goes out and finds that information. So when you're under hypnosis, the astral now can talk directly to a person here in physical reality through your physical body, using the vocal cords, using the lungs, using your physical body, which it normally can't do. When you tell the astral self to do something, it doesn't have inhibitions. I could hypnotize a bunch of people. I'm not going to do it. But if we find hypnotizable subjects, they could be doing the bird, and we get them doing all this crazy stuff, and they're not going to even know when they came out of the hypnosis that anything happened. People can be given post-hypnotic suggestion, which means that you give them instructions and they don't know that they had the instructions, but they will still do the task, such as walking around, doing things. Some people have been hypnotized where they end up seeing every license plate number on every car on an entire city block, and they don't even know. They just think they're taking a walk down the street. You hypnotize them again, and they can spit back every single license plate number, because your astral self has access to so much more information. And the trick is that it actually goes back to that time when you were walking around and looks. It doesn't even have to be stored in advance. It's just the fact that it can go there out of body and do this. So you can be programmed so that you don't see someone when you wake up. They can be standing in front of you and you don't see anything. And when they talk, you won't hear a word. And this is people that seem otherwise to be normal. They don't know anything is wrong. You can see right through their body and read words behind them. This is in The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. He talks about this guy who was hypnotized to not be able to see his daughter. He comes out of trance. His daughter's standing right in front of him. He can look through her body. The hypnotist is holding a pocket watch behind her back, and he looks through her body and can read the inscriptions on the watch. And he reported that once he came out of this hypnotic state, he didn't even know he was under hypnosis. So now think about what that means. You can be walking around and completely not interacting with physical matter and not even know, just by a post-hypnotic suggestion. When we get into the 2012 discussion, which is not really what the focus of this talk was, that's why we did the other one on Friday or Saturday. The 2012 discussion, probably a very strong part of this is that there will be some sort of mass dehypnosis that occurs, where we no longer have these hypnotic barriers, and we will remember much more and access much more. But right now, you have to kind of claw your way through it. So this gets into the idea that space, time, matter, energy, and biology, all these things are produced by this energy field that I call the source field. And I've given you the stuff about gravity, that really the energy of mind is a spinning flow in the fluid-like energy of gravity. It's the flow that makes the continents move around on the plates. It's expanding. It's causing the continents to change shape as the geometry changes. And it also, the same spin is what gives your body vitality. It heals you. If you get this energy, it makes you much stronger. The spin fields have the energy of life, and they have the energy of consciousness. Just like you could have a cell phone and be talking on the cell phone, and that's an electromagnetic wave that's allowing your conversation to occur, and you could be watching a video over the internet with your cell phone. Your pineal gland is doing the same thing, except it's using the source field. It's using the spin in gravity. But it's encoding waves the same exact way. That's what it's doing. We want to learn how to access that. Cleve Baxter talked about this. I'm just going to go through this briefly. Plants, bacteria, insects, fish, birds, basically everything that's alive, he found out he could wire it up to a polygraph and get these electrical readings off of how much electricity is running through those cells in that living organism. But what he found out was that when trauma and stress happened in one living thing, the other living things had a sudden electrical surge. And it's an effect because you can't really predict when or how it's going to happen. If the animal or the life knows that there's something traumatic that's going to happen, it says, oh, I'm not worried about that. Whatever. So it's only when it's caught by surprise that it works, but there's many, many examples. In fact, in one case, he went to Yale University, wired up a plant to a polygraph, and then had the students put a spider on the table and cover around the spider with their hands, and then the spider feels like it's trapped, like it's going to be it's going to be killed. As soon as they pull their hands away, the spider realizes it can make a run for it. The plant has a massive surge of electrical surge of energy. Boom, right at the moment, and then the spider runs. And you can repeat this over and over again, and it keeps working. And that's one of many examples. He's done it with every different type of life there is. The lower level creatures sense everything that's threatening. The higher level ones like us do not. We have a biasing mechanism that screens all that stuff out. Bacteria sense everything. And that's, again, a biasing mechanism that's happening that's stopping us from getting data, but we actually know that our own cells are doing this. This NASA scientist, Dr. Brian O'Leary, traveled 300 miles to the airport while his cells were wired up in the lab, and during the time that he traveled, he wrote down every time something bad happened to him, like he missed a turn or his son was late picking him up at the airport. Every time he had stress, his cells in the lab showed that stress electrically, and they're 300 miles apart from him. So your body's doing this all the time. You just don't know it. We already talked about this, some people working on a task and then others make it easier. This has also been done with Morse code, where you actually can solve the real Morse code better than the fake Morse code if you use the real one. Even people who've never heard of it before, they'll make the guesses of what the real one is much more. It's been done with crossword puzzles, where if you actually have people solve a puzzle the next day after it comes out, they solve it much faster than the same puzzle if they do it right after it's first released, because now more people have worked on it, and it's easier to solve. This is all because we're sharing a mind. So some of the mind comes from our body and is processed in the body, but the intellect is combining many influences, some of which are energetic and non-local. So ultimately, this is a big, big shift. And again, this is what we would call a leap in logic, but I acknowledge that. But the ultimate ramifications of this is that the whole idea that you're an individual is wrong. Now, that's a very insulting blow to the ego, which loves to have pride and prestige and think that it's important. But ultimately, it's like we're cells in a cosmic mind. A hypnotic trance that has been left in our mind, keeping us programmed so that we don't recognize other people's minds, so that we don't go crazy, basically. There's a constant interaction that we have with other people behind the scenes. It's all going on in the subconscious. We don't know about it. And there's all this information coming in that we throw away. So our conscious mind is a conference call. It's all these different things going on at once. One of the really cool ways to show this is the Maharishi effect. You get 7,000 people together, they meditate for world peace, and then 72% of everybody in the world stops doing terrorism. That's astonishing. Because what that shows is that we really are sharing one consciousness. 3 out of 4 people worldwide decided not to commit a crime or an act of aggression. And I propose that this is because our emotional state is like a temperature, and as it goes hotter, we get angry and we get impatient, we lose impulse control. We have sayings like seeing red, hot under the collar. Blue color is a decrease. And what I'm proposing is that if this room were to get really, really hot, and we're trapped in here, we can't get out, and you think you're better at getting through that door than the guy that's in front of the door now, and everybody gets really upset, you're going to try to push him out of the way to get through. I know, get out of the way. Ah. What I'm saying is that a very small number of people become like this beautiful blast of cool air. Just makes everybody calm down. And it's a very small number. Notice how disproportionate this is. 7,000 people affect the free will of everyone in the world. That's a very compelling suggestion that the universe is biased for love. It is not biased for what the Illuminati folks are doing. It's just the opposite. Yeah, amen, right? Absolutely. Reincarnation, right? Some kids can remember their past lives. As they get older and their pineal gland starts to calcify, they don't remember. But Dr. Ian Stevenson tested 4,000 children in the Middle East who claimed to remember their past lives and found that the dates and the times and everything that they gave him remarkably correlated with the truth, and you can actually do a forensic match between that kid's face and the past life and they look almost identical. So this is going on over and over again. And in the Middle East, here's the big key. They're not hypnotized to believe that past lives don't exist. Because the kid believes that he can do it and that he did have a past life, he then or she then remembers his or her past life. So again, what I'm giving you here is the teachings that dehypnotize you so you can remember what you really are. If you're going through spiritual growth, I imagine everybody in this room wants to spiritually grow, or else you wouldn't be here. What are you growing towards? What's the point? What's the big hidden agenda behind what you're doing? Are you supposed to just keep on reincarnating and becoming human again and again and again and again? Or are you going to go to the next level? And if you're going to go to the next level, then when? Are you supposed to just die, and then if you figured it out and you got it, then you don't have to reincarnate? Or is there something else that happens? Well, there's 160,000 documented cases in Tibet and in China about what they call the rainbow body, where people spontaneously burst into light and they leave almost nothing behind. There's legends about this all over the world, and again, there's much more to talk about here than I have time. Jesus with the Shroud of Turin, there's a three-dimensional holographic image burned into the shroud, but that's only one data point of 160,000 documented cases. So this is something that happens while you're alive. Your body does not die the normal way. Something else happens to you. And the ancients were telling us the key to doing this seems to be around 2012, some sort of energetic shift. You've heard me talk about this in my other talks, that it's a change in the solar system that's going on. And what I'm saying now is we need to learn how to do this so that when this moment comes, that we're as prepared as we can be. The higher self is guiding us to this graduation, a shift in who we are and what we will evolve into. And I like this art to illustrate this sort of ascension blast that could happen where we're ready to take off. So the great illusion is this world that's given to us that appears to be the real world. And the truth behind it is that the earth is a school for spiritual growth. Your individuality is only apparent, but in fact, everyone around you is a mirror reflection of yourself. And yet, you do need to honor their free will. You cannot act like your will is more important than theirs, or that, well, you're just another version of me, so therefore, whatever you think you want is nothing. All that really matters is what I want because I'm enlightened. Well, that's what the Illuminati think. That's the whole basis of negative philosophy. Positive philosophy honors free will. It honors the fact that, yes, we are all one, and we have apparent individuality. And even though it's an illusion, if we don't play the game and we don't honor that free will, we get zapped with bad karma. And it will happen reliably, as I just found out here with my pants. I mean, I couldn't take the fact this guy was making me wait too long, and you guys are going to have to wait for me. And I'm like, look, I'm just going to go, okay? And I get into the car, and poof, my pants rip. Oh, God. So it's the same lesson keeps getting taught again and again. This was a nice little example for everybody that was kind of humorous. And I like these pants. I mean, it sucks. Infringing upon someone else's free will damages yourself. Again, even though this ego is this fragile eggshell and people are so hypersensitive and you overload them with shame. If you try to tell them something they're not ready to hear, then they go through a process of shame. And there's a whole technique in therapy called shame management where you don't want to give people more shame than they can handle. Because if you don't use shame management and you overload them with shame, guess what happens? You get a break. And when they break, they're going to start yelling at you. They're going to start crying. Something's going to happen which is undesirable. So the spiritual teachings of the universe is all about free will. In the Law of One series, they stress that more than anything else. They keep coming back to it over and over again. Everything's about free will. We're here to learn love, and loving others is giving them the right to think and behave how they want, which means not even offering unsolicited advice, actually. Oops. If you actually offer people things that they didn't ask you for, you're violating their free will. So you offer service when they ask for it, but not when they don't. It's a whole different way of looking at things. And this is all techniques. It's basically being kind, being generous and considerate of others instead of trying to foist your will upon them, and this will awaken your pineal gland. It's very important that you not lose track of the technique of being a nice person, because that's really a major part of this. If you don't act nicely, if you violate people's free will, that's the main thing that will give you karma. Particularly tragic things that seem like my pants ripping. I mean, I know exactly what that was. There was no doubt. I got tired of this cop, whatever. You know, I'm a maverick. I mean, look at the vest I'm wearing, for God's sake. It restores you to a perfect balance. Right now that my pants have been destroyed, I've been paid off by the universe for the fact that I did that to that cop, and now I'm back into good shape, which they needed me to be nice and clean for you guys here. So my pants had to take the fall. It restores you to perfect balance. There's no judgment ever intended. This is so critical because what did I say before? Shame is what pushes you over the breaking point. The perception of shame. If you get overloaded with shame, you will actually have a breakdown. You will, quote unquote, go crazy. You will go into a rage. You will start crying. You'll want to throw things. This happens when you get overloaded, and when people get really bad karma, when something happens to them, they think that there's some being up there that's judging them, and they feel shame from the universe. That's not how it works. So give yourself permission to let go of that if you want to. I'm inviting you to let go of that, because it's been explained to me extensively that the karma happens because it brings you back to balance, and it's done compassionately by universal law. Nobody is up there snickering at you and, ha ha ha, didn't we get you, you little sucker. Nothing like that. They're like compassionately administering karma, which has got to be tough. I mean, can you imagine angelic beings giving you a car crash that's going to immobilize part of your body, and the detailed work that they have to do to guide your car just right so that it cracks your femur and your whole leg is now limp and dead. But it doesn't kill you. That's part of your higher self getting through. They coordinate this stuff down to the exact nature of the injury and exactly how bad it is and how it happens. It's all the result of unseen coordination. And so if you want to access your higher self, the first step is to realize, when is it talking? Anything that disrupts the balance of your life is a message from your higher self giving you notes on how you haven't been administering freedom to other people in your life, but you're infringing on them instead. It's very, very important. Once you know this, you don't ever need to feel fear again. That's huge. Because what it ultimately means is, whatever happens is something that you have control over. There's nothing uncontrollable that's ever going to happen in your life. You're not going to have FEMA camps. You're not going to have martial law. It's not warranted because there are not enough people on earth inviting massive world dictatorship. Thank you. And this is another message that's come in so clearly for so long, nestled in with these things that predict the future so well. The service to others behavior will be repaid many times over. So we have some nice art here as you're thinking about all this stuff. Now, this brings us to synchronicity. You see repeating digits on clocks, on your odometer, license plates, receipts. Everybody says, oh, David, what does this mean? Whatever was happening right before you see it is the important message. That's so critical. Don't worry about, oh, what do the numbers mean? I think 333 might mean, da-da-da-da, and Kabbalistically it means da-da-da, and the Tibetans said, no. Don't even worry about what the numbers mean. I mean, sometimes they do. Native Americans had different animal totems, and if you want to encode that synchronicity, you can, but now that we don't have animals all around us, it's harder to get those messages. But whatever your synchronicity system is, you decide that you want it to be there. We'll get into that in a minute, and it'll work for you. This is all carefully coordinated. The higher beings are manifesting those eagles to fly over the Native Americans. They're manifesting you to drive your car at a certain place at a certain time so that the digits line up, or to look at the clock at the right moment. It's all because you're under hypnosis, and the post-hypnotic suggestion from your higher self is telling you to do this. Ultimately, what this does is it tears away the veil, breaks through the illusion, and you understand that reality is magical. You're not living in the dull, dumb, shut-down world of spiritual ignorance any longer. You have become enlightened because you see that everything has purpose and meaning. And this is where whatever you think you see around you starts to change, and you have this whole new reality. You can encode synchronicity. Let's talk about that. You tell the universe what you want to see, and it will act on behalf of you. So people are like, well, I don't know. I mean, does it mean something if I see a penny on the ground when I'm walking? Yes, if you tell the universe that when that happens that you're going to accept it as a synchronicity. These higher beings may not go to as much trouble to do a synchronicity job for you if you're just going to blow it off and say, oh, well, isn't that interesting? It probably doesn't mean anything. It must be a coincidence. There's no coincidence here. This is a magical reality. Everything's interspersed with who we are now. There's this whole hidden reality, the parallel universe going on all around us with beings in it that we don't see. You don't want to plan your whole life down to the minute. Obviously, you don't want to just end up living in your car either. I mean, some people do that. But it's good to kind of find some way in between where you're not out there in the middle of the woods with nothing but a barrel eating twigs and berries. And you also don't want to have everything timed down to the minute, because synchronicity requires some flexibility so that you do things seemingly at random and then events happen. They become meaningful. The left side of the body is where energy flows in, and the right side is where energy comes out. So the left side is traditionally associated with absorbing people's energy, service to self, the negative path, which is not really negative, it's yin-yang. We need both sides. But that's energy going in, which is absorbing. Energy on the right is radiating. You're giving it out. You're giving to others. So you might get little pinpricks, like all of a sudden it feels like acupuncture. You get this needle-like pain in one part of your body. That's a synchronicity. Any type of sensation, whether it be pain, whether it be tingling, whether it be heat, you can look at the side of the body and get clearer on the message, and then you can look at the part of the body and use the body as a metaphor. So if you have an eye issue, it will be, what are you not seeing? Ear, what are you not hearing? The mouth is like, what do you not want to take in? What do you not want to digest? Liver is associated with anger. Kidneys is associated with fear. And there's all these other things. Louise Hay talks about all this. All this stuff is in the video. We go into more detail about it. So again, tones could appear in your ear. You hear a ringing or something like that. You get a pinprick sensation or a tingling in your body. All that stuff is part of the message from this hidden reality that's all around us that we normally don't see. But there's all these colors and shimmering lights and everything going on. Now, the next level, beyond just saying, hey, you know, synchronicity, it would be great if you show up once in a while, and I'm going to decide that it's meaningful. You can petition the universe. And you can do that in a variety of ways. And the first way is like using these divination techniques, such as the Ouija board or the pendulum. I don't recommend this because the Casey reading said that they're easily influenced by other forces, not just your higher self. So you can easily get inaccurate information if you use the Ouija board or the pendulum. Bibliomancy, however, is great. Get a book that has loads of spiritual inspiring material in it, page after page. I've used the I Ching before. I've used the Dhammapada, Buddha's Book of Righteousness. I've used the Bible. I've used books on astronomy that are written by mainstream scientists. And then I happen to open up to the only picture of a planetary conjunction in the whole book, and the conjunction, when you read it astrologically, was absolutely significant to what I was looking at. I even opened up a book on my grandfather's shelf, Who's Who in Business, 1979, Bibliomancy, and then I opened up to a certain page, and I even knew where to put my hand, because in my mind I saw this square of light. And when I took my hand away, my hand was on a description of this guy who was a paranormal researcher. And there's obviously very few of those in a book from 1979 on Who's Who. So the trick with this is you want to take, if it's a hardcover book, you take the covers off, you hold the pages between your hands in a prayerful position. I believe that's a very important protocol. You tune in, you get really deep, you breathe, you feel your center. If you're standing, you want to bend your legs, or if you're just sitting, you want to feel that anchoring, okay? Breathe it through, and then when you're ready, you hold the question in your mind, whatever it is you want to know, and then you open the book, and depending on how you want to do it, you just either let it happen, or you just keep on slowly flipping through pages until something feels right. There's no one right way to do this. When you get to the page that you think is the right page, you might even try to see if there's a particular part of the page that feels better. You could actually try feeling over the paper with your hand, see if there's a tingling. There might be. Or you can try to visualize the book in your mind, and you might see light around it. I saw a light directly around the entry for this guy's bibliography in this book on Who's Who. So that's a great technique. And again, it's very important what book you choose. I recommend books that are sacred texts from ancient times are really good. If you have a book that's of questionable value, you might not want to use that. But any book that really seems to be solid will work great. In ancient Greek and Roman times, the omphalos stone I showed you is the legend of the oracle. You ask a question at the oracle, you cover your ears, you walk to the far end of town. When it feels right, you let go of your ears, and then you listen to the people talking. And the first thing that you hear that somebody says is the message. That sounds ridiculous, but it really works. And you can do this. In fact, it might start to make you feel like you're going crazy. Because remember that scene in The Matrix where Neo says, my computer is talking to me? You know, well, if you start asking for this kind of stuff to happen, you're going to be talking about one thing. Have you ever heard this? Like you're having a conversation and you know the other person can't hear what you're saying, and they end up using the same word that you're using. Really close. Happens to me all the time. So you can use this technique by simply becoming aware of the things that happen around you and be open to significance. And sometimes you're going to be, the thing about this is it preserves your free will because you never really know for sure what the message is. You have to take a guess. That's why for any important decision that you might make in your life, I recommend a minimum, absolute minimum of 3 solid pings that are pretty undeniable before you actually decide that you got a message. You can't just take one data point and be done and say, okay, that's it, I got the message. That's a rogue approach. I don't approve of that. You can really get in trouble. I decided, I listened in, and I was sick when I was driving my car, and it said, take Lincoln, don't take the 405. If I hadn't have taken Lincoln, I probably wouldn't have been late. But maybe some people needed to come in late. I mean, who knows what it was. I don't know. But the point is that, I made some bad decisions. My pants ripped, got a ticket, and here we are. So I'm not perfect. It's not like every single thing that I hear is the right information. You got to never let yourself fall under the delusion that you're a perfect psychic. If you do that, you're crazy. You are a schizophrenic. You will always get bad data. You will always get stuff that is not correct. Don't walk out of this room thinking that you're perfect. Because if you do that, you are falling under an egoic delusion and you will get hammered hard. Always be open to the fact that you're wrong. Get multiple pings before you make a decision on anything. It's very critical. Runes in the I Ching, again, this is more of a throwing thing. You throw the coins or you throw these stones and you can get meaning off of that. The favorite one that I used, I highly recommend, is tarot cards. This was my transitional stage into doing readings where I actually spoke it out loud. This is where I started. The simplest one is just drawing 1 card. 3 cards is like past, present, future. A 10-card spread, the first 6 cards are the present, and then the last 4 are the future. What you need to do here is hold the cards when you buy the deck, if you already have one. Have your book there. Read up the meanings of what these cards are about, what they tell you, and then tell the card what it means in your mind. And you're actually storing information in the card in the spin field of gravity. The atoms in the card contain that blueprint now of the information. And then intuitively, you'll know which ones to grab. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with tarot cards is that when they shuffle them, they don't realize that if cards start falling out of the deck, you want those cards. Okay? Oh, shit, okay, get that back in there. No. The card that falls out is the most important card. If it just jumps out, okay, that's the one. Boom. You still might want to do the rest of your reading, but that card is going to have special significance. And, of course, you can do larger than 10 card spreads, too. There's some that are even like 20, 22, something like that. All different things start to get you into this magical reality coexisting with our own, where all you have to do is look around you and you're seeing things that most people don't see and you're hearing things that most people don't hear. The voice of the galaxy is coming through. And you will be flowering, blossoming into this new version of yourself. Okay, now, you heard me say all this before about the decalcifying the pineal gland. Very important. No white flour and no white rice either. Potatoes, you can do sweet potatoes, but not regular potatoes. If you really want to get this stuff down, you got to practice this, and you'll actually lose weight too. If you just get off of refined sugar, factory meat, white flour, and dairy, unless the only way you can eat dairy is if it's by itself and you don't cook it, which sucks because everybody loves cheese, but you can eat cheese, just don't heat it up. Then it's okay. And if you eat it by itself, it's okay. It's when you combine it with other things that it actually becomes toxic and will calcify your pineal gland. And when you heat it up, you create these oils that you can't digest, which then calcify your pineal gland. So factory meat, obviously if you eat organic, that's fine. Fresh raw fruits and vegetables, organic every day, very important. Superfoods like super green powder, omega 369, you can find this at the health food store. Just ask them for the omega oils, they'll know what you're talking about. I recommend a liquid vitamin B complex, and I recommend skate liver oil. We have a few bottles of that here. I think we do. Do we? We do. Okay, we got the skate out there. There's probably going to be a rush because we don't have very many, but we do have some. But you can also order it on greenpasture.org. That's the website. Green Pasture. Not Green Pastures with an S. If you go there, it's a fundamentalist Christian website. And you're going to be like, what the hell is David talking about? Just take the E, not the S at the end. So this is dialing you into the matrix. The dietary practice is so critical because your body has to become an antenna for spirit. And if you fill it up with junk, the antenna switches off. You really don't want that to happen. And again, this was a skyscape that Andrew Jones was looking at, probably under the influence of chemicals that will remain unnamed. And he sees something else that's not ordinarily there, but doesn't mean it doesn't exist. He's just trying to give you a glimpse of what it looks like from his perspective. Pretty neat. So, philosophy, very important. And we've already covered all this. There's only one of us here. Free will is a universal law. The Law of One series gave us two practices that will exponentially increase the amount of power that you can pull in from spirit. Well, that's pretty daggone important. Exponential increase means that every time you do the practice again in the moment, you're now literally exponentially increasing how much power you can draw upon. So if you do this enough, then, one person can move a mountain. There's only two ways to do it. That's it. And there's no other exponential practice ever given in the book. And this is all getting back to your Jesus teaching stuff. It's very simple. The first exponential practice is to simply seek the love in this moment. The time you most want to do this is when you are feeling the least loving. Like when I ripped my pants tonight. I started out on a good front with the cop. He's writing me the ticket. I said, bro, all I want to do is give you love. Maybe it's the vest. I don't know why, but I was in this head, right? I know everybody hates on you, man, because you're writing tickets and it sucks and you get all this hate, but I'm not going to judge, And then I'm like, okay, this is taking too long. What the hell is going on here? Okay, look, I'm just going to get in my car. This is ridiculous. Because it was a parking guy, it was this parking cop. And we were in front of the Giuliano's Raw Food restaurant. And I just went in just long enough to go to the bathroom. The guy got me in seconds. Not even a minute. 30 seconds. And I walk out, and he's like, sorry, I already scanned your license plate with the barcode thing. You can't change it now. Oh, my God. I lost it, and then if I had been able to keep seeking love in that moment, instead of ripping my pants, I would have burst into light. And that's it. I'm done. Graduation day. That's really what I'm talking about. Each time you seek more love, I really love you, man. No, I really love you, man. You get an exponential increase. The only other exponential practice, there's only two. Remember, that's what I said. The only other one is to reflect on the past for how it informs the present. Now, what the hell does that mean? You do this simultaneously with the love practice. They're two of the same practice. If I were going to do this practice successfully and not end up with a gigantic hole in my pants, what I would have done is think about all the other times that a cop has written me a ticket. Yeah, I remember when he did that. I remember that one and that one and that one and that one. Oh, I'm giving away too much now. It's been a lot of times. I've gotten pulled over a lot because I like to go fast. I can't help it. I get impatient. I know I'm working on it, but I still do it. Well, if I reflect on the past and I say, okay, there might be some reason for why we're late. other than that you all were having to sit here for 20 minutes and be like, where the hell is he? You know, some people might have needed to get here at the beginning, so they heard the whole thing and they were late. That did happen. So, you know, how's that for blowing off my own incompetence as if you deserved it? That's pretty technically excellent. I'm well on my way here. I got my cult leader chops building up. We got Kool-Aid in the back, but now it's green tea. You know, we got to give people a healthy option. I used that joke on Saturday, but it's a good one. Okay, so we reflect on the past. Well, again, each time you seek love in the moment, the way that you keep making that unique is you keep thinking about other situations that relate to what's going on. That's what dreams are doing. Dreams are your most important download from your higher self, short of getting your own verbal messages. And even then, when you get verbal messages, it's very difficult to do it correctly. So dreams are what I use the most. I'd get a lot more data from dreams than I do from readings, because readings are always subject to potential influence. Dreams, you either remember them or not. And we're going to get into that in a minute. So each new time you remember something from the past, you get an exponential increase. So what this means is, I did something amazing. This kid that I knew in high school emailed me out of nowhere just yesterday. And this was a kid that I make fun of him all the time because he had this funny voice when he was stoned. He sounded like Mickey Mouse, dude. He talked like this. Oh, I'm so high, dude. It's crazy. Right? And it was funny. His name was Boehner. We called him Boehner. Boehner emailed me out of nowhere. Bro, I saw you on Ancient Aliens History Channel. Yeah, I can still do the voice in my head. It's fucking amazing, bro. You know, he would lots of profanity when he would talk. All of a sudden, I have the opportunity to look through his Facebook page and find all these people I went to high school with who I have not seen since 1991. I'm 38 years old in less than a month. Let me just say, to be polite, that most of the people I went to high school with do not look like I do. They are in the Matrix, and I was shocked because Bob Dean the other day walked up to me and said, "You look not a day over 25." I'm like, really? Okay, well, it's because of the consciousness that I'm anchoring in, and because of the dietary practice, you don't age the same way. It's literally like the fountain of youth. I don't look like I'm 38, and I got the proof because practically every other person that I saw from my graduating class for the first time in 25 years, or how long it's been. How long is it? 91, 2001, 20 years. 20 years. Everybody looked old and overweight, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. So the point is, your dreams are going to dial you back into your high school, to your grade school, to your parents, to all this stuff to get you to reflect upon the past and how it informs what's going on now. You're going to have the same characters keep repeating in your life until you learn the lesson. So if the lesson you need to learn is how to love yourself, the universe will duly reward you for not loving yourself by sending you people who kick your ass. That's what it does. The universe is not a smiling clown with a lollipop. It's the evil clown. Ha 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 ha. But that's what you have to go through, right? You have to see your shadow reflected back to you. A lot of people have these dreams where they see the earth is going to be destroyed. Oh my God, it's a prophecy. We're all going to die. In your dream plane, everything is yourself. And that's what we're about to get into, is dreams. And so all of this chaos and unbalanced energy in your dreams, it's not saying the world is going to be destroyed. It's merely saying that you're going through a massive shift. The language is symbolism. This is so important because symbolism is multidimensional. It gives you multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. There's no one correct interpretation. It preserves your free will. It's using your pineal gland. When you're out there, your dreams are getting into your body through the pineal gland, conveying symbolic information from the cosmos to get you on track with what you need to know. And we're going to get back to dreams in just a minute. There are some exercise things you can do practically that will help immeasurably. Walk in direct sunlight without wearing sunglasses or sunscreen. There's energy from the sun. The Indians call it prana, and that will actually charge up your astral body, decalcify your pineal gland thanks to the vitamin D, and help you immeasurably to be more psychic. Yoga and walking, other types of exercise, all that stuff, the stretching exercises are very good because they increase circulation and blood flow to the pineal gland. Admittedly, I don't do enough of this, but it's important that you do. It's very important to work on the flexibility of your spine more than anything. This is something the readings told me. Before you go to bed at night, you want to bend a lot and just get that spine all flexible, because that'll make a big difference in how well you remember your dreams the next morning. Another very little known thing that I found out from the CIA, the Black Ops Psychic Training Program, where they train these people ultimately to be psychic influencers of others, black magic basically. This is good for either path. I'm not saying I'm teaching you to be evil here. I'm just saying that you can use some of what they've got for the positive, and this is one example. Any type of exercise that involves explosive, sudden movements, similar to martial arts or weightlifting, like push-ups, pull-ups, any of these types of exercise where it's not just like gentle movement, but you have sudden, fast movement, is very important to developing psychic ability. Martial arts, strength-building exercises, and what they call inverse calisthenics, which is pretty wild. Excuse me. It's where you actually hang upside down, and while you're upside down, you do sit-ups. I do not claim to be doing this. It's not fun. But you can do it if you're really dedicated, and it'll get results. And you start to pierce the veil, and you start to see all these energies that are not there, and those energies will begin speaking to you more and more. And you can decrease all this chaos that's what most people's minds are filled with. Now I want to talk about meditation, because this is really important if you're going to get into the deeper levels of how this all is done. There's two major types. Contemplative is simply sitting there and thinking about not thinking. There's not a whole lot of work involved. In fact, the whole point is not to work, but just to sit. Then the other type is concentrative, and they're both important. In fact, you should do both of these, where you focus on an image. Ooh. I never plugged my computer in. Okay? Good. Saved from the brink of destruction. All right. The show must go on. We focus on an image, a tone, or a mantra. This can include things like a circle, whatever you want to do, a triangle. You can do sacred geometry, but the idea is to try to keep a single image held clear in your mind without losing track of it. The biggest misunderstanding of meditation, I hear this all the time, and it makes me laugh because I've heard it so many times that I get burned out from everybody saying the same thing. I try to meditate, and all I do is think about this junk in my life. Okay, well, here's the deal. The junk in your life is the information that you need to process and heal in yourself before you can access your higher self. That's what you got to go through first. So it's best done when you're already tired. It's okay if you fall asleep. You don't have to try to stay awake. You keep meditating, and you try to get to the point where you feel light as a feather, stiff as a board, where your mind is awake but your body is asleep. You will literally have difficulty moving even one finger. You feel all your awareness as if it's concentrating into the center of your head, i.e. the pineal gland. And then every thought that comes through your conscious mind, when you get deep enough that all these things are happening, that you literally can't move your body, you're that tired, every thought that comes in your mind is data. If you try to think of a thought, it's going to be difficult. It just arises and you don't have to do any work. The whole trick is to get here and then be able to bring stuff back. And I'm going to talk about that. Mandalas are excellent. This includes crop circle diagrams. You can meditate on those. Sacred geometry will align you with higher awareness. You can tone. The Aum is a great thing to do. You can count your breath. You inhale for 4 heartbeats, hold it in for 2 heartbeats, exhale for 4 heartbeats, hold out your breath for 2 heartbeats, and then increase eventually to 636. That's great, because that gives your conscious mind a job, and then your higher self can start speaking in between the cracks. You want to be able to hold a visual image in your mind without deviation, and one of the best ways to do that is dream work, because you either remember it or you don't. So, we already talked about how this gives you a gateway into the cosmos, awakening your pineal gland to this matrix of information that's all over. And now I want to go through some dream things, and then we're going to do the stuff on readings, and then we'll have a meditation, and we're done. So I'm not going to keep you guys here crazy late. We're winding up towards the end of this. Again, all this stuff is available on the website in much more detail, but I want you to hear all of it so you have an opportunity to practice it. The most important thing about dreams is don't wake up to an alarm, unless the alarm is the last minute, and you need it only to avoid from being totally late. You want to get up before the alarm, which happens anyway. How many times have you woken up and you turn off the alarm? right? That's what a lot of people. So, the trick is refined sugar will kill your dreams. Do not eat refined sugar. I said that before. Very important. It clogs up the pineal gland even from one night. Scientists know that when you eat sugar, your immune system shuts off for 5 hours, and they don't know why. But it's an energetic effect caused by the fact that sugar absorbs torsion fields, this spiraling energy I was talking about. That's the energy of consciousness. I tested this on myself. I ate sugar, and then I tried to remember my dreams. I couldn't remember anything. And my mother just proved this. She was eating refined sugar and finally decided not to, and almost immediately she started to remember all these dreams. So this really works. When you first wake up, don't move. I can't stress that enough. Just lie there. You don't have an alarm. You come back into your body. You become conscious. Train yourself not to do anything, because we think, oh my gosh, I'm waking up. I got to go get up. I got to get ready for the day. No. Just lie there. Just chill out. Don't even move a finger. Ask yourself, what was just happening to me? Not what was I dreaming? Where was I? Who was I talking to? What was going on? Where did we go? What did we talk about? What was just happening? That's what you need to ask. Act as if it was real. Then, this goes back to the concentrative meditation I was talking about. You want to grab a single snapshot of information and then try to store 2 or 3 of them at once in your head while you're lying there. So a typical example would be, okay, I see a chair. There was a chair in the dream. I was either sitting in it or I was walking around, but there was a chair. Okay. Hold that chair and remember the chair in your mind. Then say, okay, in the next part, I was in this big green field, and there was a statue over on the far end, and it was made out of gold. Okay, great. So I got the chair, and I got the gold statue. Now you want to remember the field and the gold statue, and that's another piece that you store in your mind. Then, okay, the third one is, I see this car, and I get inside the car, but then it turns into an airplane, and I'm flying. Okay, great. So now, I'm literally telling you, you need to sit there in bed and keep thinking, chair, 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 chair. Green field with gold statue, green field with gold statue, green field with gold statue. Get in the car turns into an airplane. Get in the car turns into an airplane. You keep doing this over and over again. Try to hold this in your mind. Then when you wake up, you walk over to your computer, you hit the button to get it out of suspend. You have your 2 glasses of water right there. If you don't drink a whole lot of water before bed, then you won't have to pee when you first get up, which is very important. You can just go right from the bed to the computer, right next to the bed. You keep it at your desk there. Before you go to bed, that's what I do. You know, there's a desk right near my bed where the computer is. You write, is that funny? All right, well, okay. I can vibe in that might be funny, but I've been doing it for so long, and I used to live in 1-bedroom studio apartments. It doesn't seem that strange, you know. So you write down the day of the week, the date, and a dash before you go to bed the night before. The day of the week is important because weekends influence strongly what your experience is going to be of whether you can remember anything. Because it's whether you're going to go to work or not. You just want the day of the week in there. You want the date, and then you put the dash. So when you wake up, all you have to do is look at the clock, type the time, and then get going. Now, this is something that people don't usually remember to do. You want to write down whatever your conscious mind is thinking about. Oh, I'm worried I got to pay the light bill today. My landlord has got to come by and deal with such and such. And then whatever it is that's in your mind, whatever that junk is, just write it down and get it done. Because as soon as you put it down, your conscious mind says, oh, okay, cool, I'm happy. You listened. Great. I'm done. I'm out of here. Bye. Now you start your bulleted list and you write down 1 sentence at a time of what the dream had to say. You start with those little clusters that you remember. And then, from there, you document all of them at once. You don't want to go into each individual one. You want to get all 3. So you say, okay, I got the chair, I got the green field and the gold statue, and then I got the car that turns into an airplane. Great, got it. Then you go back and you meditate on each individual one, and now you can blank out your mind because you've already documented the other data, so it doesn't have to be anything you remember. Now you meditate on that chair, and you keep thinking and thinking, and all of a sudden, boom, you get a little snapshot. This is teaching you how to be psychic. This is what you need to do. You'll remember new information from the dream, and then you write it down. Every minute detail, no matter how insignificant it might be, it's all part of the data. You want to pay close attention to color, whether you're indoors or outdoors, and you want to write down all the specifics about the characters, because the characters are really the key, more than anything else. you'll hit a threshold where suddenly you can remember everything from one part of the dream. It just all bursts out all at once. You then rearrange your bulleted list into the order the data came in, and you insert breaks between sections, which allows you to write analysis paragraphs after each piece of the dream that's important, and I'll tell you how to analyze them in just a minute here. Then you want to go through your detailed analysis at the end, write up what you think it means. And this will dial you in deeper and deeper to this mystical, unseen world, which is, this is Andrew's, I think, description of the pineal gland, this portal that you go through while you're dreaming. You want to bring all this weird stuff back with you and get through to the higher self from this process. The most important thing I can tell you is everything you remember from the dream is yourself. The insiders call this psychocartography and say that your dream is a landscape, and every piece of the landscape represents some aspect of your personality structure. Every character, every object, every landscape, every event is symbolizing you. Now, every time you have a dream, you're going through the same landscape. The landscape doesn't change underneath, it's just that it looks different. The metaphors of the landscape stay the same, and believe it or not, their geometric location stays the same. Now, this is serious black ops stuff I'm telling you here. They would be pissed off if they knew I was giving you this. Believe me, because this is highly secret. But what happens is, as you walk through your dream landscape, you're going to run into characters in particular, and those characters might look different from one dream to the next, but they symbolize some part of yourself. And they'll be showing up again and again. People keep getting traumatic dreams. They're running from something. It's scary. There's a nightmare element to it. It's not fun. You run through the same circuits over and over again, and it only represents one small area of the landscape of your psyche, but you don't get to see the rest because you're working on this one thing. Now, who's that character that chases you? It's called the guardian of the threshold. He's an adversary. He or she is an adversary. They will usually either chase you or prevent you from going further. This is a projection of your shadow self with an exaggerated characteristic. Now, sometimes it's the environment, sometimes nature goes after you, but a lot of times it's a character. This is created in response to real-world trauma that you had, usually when you were younger. You block out the memories from your past, and then they surface again as dream characters. Remember that exponential process that the Law of One talked about, where you can get exponential increases in your psychic ability and your power by doing what? Reflect on each event from your past as it informs the present. Dreams are doing that all the time. There's nothing more important than who the characters were in your life, when did you know them, and what do they mean for you. Not what anybody else tells you what they mean. That's why you can't really read a book about this. You got to learn it. And this is going to open up your mind to all these parallel realities, all these alternative things going on. This guardian of the threshold is not something you want to fight, even though in the dreams it appears that you're in a fight with him. If you fight the guardian, you're fighting yourself. If you run from the guardian, you're running from yourself. You study the guardian's characteristics and see how they could apply to you. So, the cop in the waking hologram of my life, who gave me a ticket tonight, represents the guardian, because you can read your life like a dream. And he represented the part of me telling me to slow down. Because instead of going and parking my car legally, I went in just long enough to take a pee. I had to go oh my God, 30 seconds, bam, and he got me. So that's the guardian telling me you got to slow down. You want to visualize yourself embracing the guardian in love, which I almost did with this guy before I got mad and ripped my pants. You then access the treasure that he's protecting. Now, in the ancient traditions, this is like a dragon sitting on gold, or it would be the virgin that's behind the gold. The treasure symbolizes the treasure in this case was my pants, yes. But the virginal gold is the actual access to your higher self that the guardian is protecting. Remember before I said, I want to meditate and all I think about is this junk in my life. That's the guardian. The junk in your life is the guardian manifested as a psychological series of issues. So the real-world application to all this stuff is that many people's courage is limited by their buried pain. You stuff it with food. That's why most of the people I went to high school with now appear to be quite overweight, even though they all picked on me for being the fat kid back then. I was the only one. So now it's like I've absorbed all their energy, right? I don't know if that's what it is, but it's crazy that now I'm thin and they're not. But anyway, we have these pains that we don't deal with, and then we stuff it with addictive behavior, with substances, with food, with spending too much, driving too fast, all these things that we do, and we limit our courage. We're not willing to take risks. We're not willing to go out there and try to make a difference. We're content to play it safe. And now all those institutions that would normally be something we can rely upon are getting torn away. And you can't rely on anything. You have to take risks. You have to be an adventurous maverick now. Another very important principle that the dreams are always trying to tell people is to increase your self-worth. The guardian of the threshold attacks you because you don't have self-worth. If you get the self-worth, the guardian goes away. That's a very critical point. If you're having nightmares and somebody's chasing you, it's a self-worth issue in almost every case. Then the question is, how did you get to be lacking in self-worth? Where did the pain come from? Who hypnotized you into telling you that you're a bad person? And how can you forgive and accept and heal that? Because once you have lack of self-worth, you're easily manipulated and controlled, and that's the problem. Because the adversary will not only be in your dreams, they will manifest in your physical life as people who manipulate you and take advantage of you. They present you with all the qualities you must integrate. So if you don't have courage, somebody courageous will come into your life who courageously takes advantage of you. If you don't have love for yourself, someone will manifest who doesn't have love for you, but in the process of not having love for you, you also learn that they are perfectly willing to stand up for themselves. They're perfectly willing to say what's on their mind, and you need to learn to stand up for yourself and say what's on your mind and not just be their doormat. Are you seeing where this is going? Got me? You drop the confusion that the person projects, and you keep whatever the message is that works for you. That's the main point. Now, in dreams, the parents are the most important underlying symbol of all this stuff. The father is the masculine. So anytime there's any male character in your dream, it ties back to the original issues of who you chose to be your parents, because that's not random. Your parents are, you came in and chose your parents to give you a message about your masculine principle, which is the part of yourself that goes out in the world, takes action, gets things done, and projects power. Any issue you have with your parents will reflect in terms of what you came to work on. So if you have an absent father, I don't have that here. If you have an absent father, then it means oftentimes that you have a tendency not to want to project your power. And so you're going to need to learn to bring that father energy in because you didn't have a father in the normal sense. If you, on the other hand, have a father who's too controlling and is constantly pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, then it means that you have a tendency to try to do too much. You're a workaholic. You're an overachiever, and you need to learn to quiet yourself down and chill out, which is where mine comes in. My father was always on my case about academics and all this stuff. The mother symbolizes your feminine principle, which is the part of you that nurtures, it raises the children, it heals, it networks with others. The female energy is very much about building community, not just being the lone wolf out there with a spear in your hand. Stopping by the side of the road on the quest to rest and rejuvenate, which is very important because if you don't do that, you're going to fall apart. Both of these energies have to come into balance. Any male or female character in your dream will relate to this. If I was ever going to write a dream book, this would be right in the beginning. Because you look at the gender, and you know the gender determines what part of yourself you're working on, whether it's the active part or whether it's the nurturing part. And those characters will symbolize that. Colors are very important. This is all explained in the Law of One material. The red color symbolizes safety, sexuality, and security, which I call the 3 S's. Anytime you see red in a dream, you want to tie in how that message could be hidden in there. The orange color, this is really critical. It's the 2nd chakra. That's the chakra of yourself. You're now building a self-awareness. That's the first step after the root chakra when you've just become, you've gone from mineral life now to basic organic life. You now have a sense of self in the orange center. The yellow color symbolizes your relationship with others. The green color is love. That's the heart, right? So this is all pretty obvious so far. Then the blue is the throat, which is the part of you that communicates. And it's also associated with gathering wisdom, because the wisdom is what you gather that allows you to speak intelligently on something. So all that stuff is a metaphor of the throat. And love and light are these 2 dual aspects of universal energy. The green chakra is the love, the blue is the light, but it doesn't have the love in it. Also, the heart chakra has the love, but it doesn't have wisdom. So if you get somebody stuck at green, they're going to be very loving, but then they won't be able to take care of themselves, and they get railroaded by others who are manipulative. Of course, nobody in this audience has ever experienced this problem because we're way too cool for that. Right? Then when we go to dark blue or indigo, love and light fuse together. This is a very good color to see in a dream for obvious reasons. Love and light have fused together. You've now made a commitment to a spiritual path in your life. You're on the unity path where you see self and other as one, and that's called the law of one. Well, you think that's the top, but it's not. The violet color is foreverness, where there is no self or other. There is only foreverness and timelessness, the void. Very rare that you see violet in a dream in any meaningful way, but it does happen, and that symbolizes really the fulfillment of the full spiritual quest. If you want to get to this level in your consciousness, it's all about seeing that everything in the world is sacred, exactly the way it is. It doesn't mean that you don't go in and try to change it and make it better so people don't suffer. I'm not saying that you get heartless. What I am saying is that you accept that things are the way they are, and you also accept that you can do something to shift that and make it better for people, but you do both. You don't just get distracted. But you also can accept that even the most heinous things on some level are part of this chain of being, and you don't want to get caught up and feel, if you're worried about a humanitarian cause, there's things you can do, but you also want to understand that everybody goes through multiple bodies, we keep coming back, and we always have lessons that we're learning, including lessons that kill us. That's part of what we learn sometimes. The white color, intelligent infinity, that's where you've shed all this stuff and you go back to the brilliant white light. That's a very important point that dreams will talk about. You're starting to peer through the veil here, getting into the deeper levels. Let's talk about that landscape. The landscape is so important because the landscape is yourself. The ground level on your dreams is the third chakra. Remember that. You go below ground level, you're now into the second and first chakra. You go into a basement, you go downstairs. Notice this, you'll see this a lot. You'll get subterranean areas, any type of subterranean area, or a building that has multiple stories. The story corresponds to the level of the chakra. If you go up a story, you're going into a higher chakra, and you can actually figure out what story you're on and what this is telling you. The speed that you move through the landscape is the speed that you're growing. The more you move through the landscape, the more energy is moving through you. This is critical. And obviously, if you walk, that's the slowest. You ride a bicycle, you're now going faster. A car is faster. A bus holds multiple people, which can be a deeper level of meaning. So does a train. Then when you go into an airplane, you have multiple people and you're flying. A UFO is a very good symbol in a dream. And if you're flying by yourself, that's an excellent symbol. Each of these represent increasingly powerful levels of progress. So when you have any dream like this, and a lot of times people have these dreams at certain points, and that's the one they want to tell me, it always symbolizes a massive burst of spiritual growth. And so what you want to do if you get a dream like this is say, what was I just doing yesterday before I had this dream that might have made this dream come up now? What am I doing? Because my higher self is telling me that I'm on the right track somewhere. And you want to analyze what that would be. Water symbolizes your emotions. You can see a drinking glass with water. You can see rain coming down. Oftentimes you'll see a lake. You might see an ocean. And you might see water in movement that could be dangerous. You might see like a tsunami or a really powerful rainstorm. The water, this is almost every dream uses water symbolism somehow. It's so common. So don't forget this one. Because water symbolism indicates how you're dealing with your emotions. So if you have a tsunami, obviously you're getting an emotional storm. Ice, actually snow and ice can also represent frozen water, that your emotions are being frozen up. Your bathroom issues, the body waste. How many times you had that dream where you got to go to the bathroom? Oh my God. I got to go. And then, like I was when I got pulled over, right? So that's unprocessed toxicity. The urine or the feces or whatever it is symbolizes these emotions that you're not dealing with. And if you're having that dream where you need to go to the bathroom and you can never get there, what are you holding on to? What is it that you haven't released? Well, oftentimes a release involves catharsis. Catharsis means that you start crying, you let it go. So you don't want to bottle up all your emotions. Sometimes you really need to let them out. If you're angry about something, you don't want to stuff that either. I recommend working out your anger inside yourself, fantasizing about whatever it is that you'd love to say to the person you're angry at in your mind. Please do it in your mind first. Because if you don't do it that way, then you won't have impulse control and you'll get yourself in trouble. But it's okay to think the thoughts that are angry so that you can sort them out before you go and present that to somebody as something that's feedback for them. Animals are another very important symbol. They represent your lower chakras, everything up to the third level. Anytime you get an animal in your dream, no matter what, you know you're in the first three chakras. You're dealing with safety, sexuality, security, how you see yourself, how you see others, and it's the primitive, it's the ego. Police, medical professionals, authorities, and people of other races, regardless of what race you are, if you see somebody from another race, they usually represent angelic beings or ETs. And this is not something you see in books. It's something that I've experienced over many years, and I did a lot of dream analysis for others, and it's very consistent. So remember that. Any type of official person, even like a head of a corporation or some boss, they represent your higher self and the message that it's trying to give you. So that really you can get a lot of mileage on that. You want to then look at the colors in relation to where the water shows up, if you get bodily waste, if you have to go to the bathroom, the animals, these professionals. The colors will then give you more meaning, as will the height and how fast you're moving through the landscape. All this stuff will tell you a lot. So really, what I've just done here, if you just use that, you can either memorize what I just said. It'll start coming back to you intuitively over time. You'll be trying to remember a dream, and you'll say, oh yeah, David said water is emotions. Right, I remember that. The more that you do this, if you just use the tools that I've given you here, you can crack any dream by meditating on it. You don't just expect that you're going to know what it means right away. You meditate on the dream. What does this mean for me? What am I being told here? And eventually you'll get it. Now, the characters are really the center, the emotional center of everything. The characters are a time coordinate, which I said before. The dream is tying back into wherever that person was in your life in the past. Now, this represents a projection of yourself. So you want to look back at who you were in high school, who you were when you were a child, what was happening to you when you knew this person. Was this person wise? Was this person ignorant? Was this person pushy? Was this person loving? What did they do? Who did they act like? Does this character in your dream remind you of anybody you know? Did that person live in another country? Did they travel a lot? Did you think that they smelled bad? Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. Just whatever the data is about that character, it's something about yourself, and it's a metaphor. Again, the same psychological issues will keep reiterating with new people over and over again. You can recognize the origin of the problem, and then you collapse this tree of fragments, all these other characters in the past, like this character that's going to come in and oppress you. You'll keep getting that oppressive person in your life until you learn this, and then you collapse it, and it doesn't need to reiterate anymore. And I finally, thank God, have gotten to the point that I'm not doing this anymore. And I had people in my life up until not that long ago who were still giving me a lot of stuff that I really didn't need. And it kept me very humble because out there on the internet, everybody's like, ooh, David Wilcock, right? And then the people I'm working with are like totally obnoxious. And I don't want to go into any more detail on that, but if you do the numbers, you'll probably figure out who I'm talking about. Well, thankfully, we got past that. So, I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, actually. I can't say anything other than that, so I'm not going to. But this is what starts to happen. The dreams are gating you into the cosmos. The messages come through, and you're pulling in this energy. Now, the dreams are a training protocol that get you up to speed to be ready for the good stuff, which is what I have to give you right before Robert kicks me off the stage here. I can see that's what he's doing. Is that what you're doing? Okay. What's that? Okay. Okay, well, let me... all right. So I will wrap this up for now. I'm going to do 5 more minutes so that I can have a good point to finish on, and we'll get through the most important stuff here. So I will watch the clock, and then we'll take this elsewhere. And you guys can ask me questions as a group outside the room, and I'll talk to you some more. Verbal messages. This is the real key. This is what everything built up to. Conversations. I recommend that you learn how to speak in complete sentences. Learn to allow yourself to just watch out for those words such as like and and you know and I mean and so and all that stuff. Just get rid of it. You may have to talk really slowly at first to do this, but it's an excellent practice to get you up to speed to eventually be able to get verbal information. 2 at once is listening to one conversation while talking to someone else. And this can be rude if you don't do it carefully, but you literally want to listen to someone talking to you, participate, and also monitor another conversation at the same time. The main focus that you want to have, of course, is on not losing the thread with the person you're talking to, but learn to flex that muscle where you can track both. That's a very important practice. Reduce distraction. Don't listen to music or TV unless your full attention is on that subject. Don't just have a TV on or a radio on in the background. And then spend at least 5 minutes motionless when you first wake up. I talked about these meditative exercises before, so in the interest of time, you already remember this. We talked about all this. Every thought in your mind is data once you feel light as a feather, stiff as a board. The audio recordings are much easier. I recommend speaking into an MP3 recorder and get digital files of what you said. Then you can transcribe them. Climbing the ladder means that you meditate deeply to get some words, you listen, then you pull yourself out of meditation to say the words into your tape recorder, go up and down, up and down. That's a very good practice. Deep sea fishing is the biggest meditative technique that worked for me, where you anchor your conscious mind to your index finger. As you're meditating deeper and deeper, you imagine you're trying to lift your finger. Oh, it's so hard to lift it, and then, let it go and relax. And as it falls, imagine that you're dropping into a deep sea of water. Each finger drop brings you deeper and deeper into relaxation. This is self-hypnosis, and it works very well. So try that out when you're lying there in bed. This is the most critical stuff I can tell you, because everything else after this is not as essential as this right here. This is the key, because all you really need to do is get in there and listen and start documenting it. Most important point, do not analyze or attempt to understand the data that you're getting. Just let it come in and don't judge it. Don't have an emotional reaction to the data. Ensure your body is comfortable. You don't want to be thirsty, you don't want to be hungry, and you don't want to have to go to the bathroom. So get all that stuff done first. All this right here is the real key of all the government remote viewing protocols, all the CIA stuff, everything. That's what everything is. Do not analyze. If you understand what's coming in, you're not doing it right, which sounds crazy, right? It's like, how do you mean don't understand it? I'm literally saying, listen to the words, but don't make any attempt to understand them, and they will come in symbolically. They'll say weird things that sound schizoidal, and just keep a brisk pace, keep it going. Say everything that you hear. Don't worry about whether it means anything or not. The weirder it sounds, the better. This is when you're, no, not when you're interpreting, just when you're deep out, you've done the deep sea fishing, you raise your finger, you drop it in. This is very important. The last big thing that we need to say, and then we'll continue this discussion outside the room. You can ask me questions, and maybe we'll do a meditation if we can do that. Your mental state should be uplifting gratitude, okay? There's nothing more important than that. If you don't have this, then your data is obviously going to be bad. So you do not want to do this when you're stressed, angry, sad, or frustrated. I can't stress that enough. If you think you're getting bad information, do not panic. Don't freak out. A lot of times it's just your ego. It's just your conscious mind wanting to get a word in. Stop and breathe and go deeper into the meditation. Let's see. I'll just get to this and then we're done. There's 2 major ways that this comes through. And this is from years of experience. The first one is sentence fragments. You hear partial sentences in one big chunk. Just listen and you hear you'll hear somebody talking. You might even feel a geometric location of where they are. And you'll hear that and you document it into your MP3 player. Transcribe it later. That's when you try to